nora, ein davar ze lo nora. Amru etzakodem lefanai ze lo mishanen. Ani ve'atar mishanen et ha'olam. Et ha'olam.
We join together in the stirring words of Hannah Senish, reminding us of the essential nature of our humanity and our personhood.
Shelo yigamer leolam, ha'chol ve'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, ve'rak hashamayim, tfilat adam, ha'chol ve'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, ve'rak hashamayim, tfilat adam. O Lord my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
I welcome all of you on this somber and stirring evening. We very deliberately characterized our gathering here this evening as a vigil expressing support and solidarity and hope. There are many times in our lives where rallies are what is needed, that kind of passionate advocacy. But in light of the tragedies that have befallen our people, and the people of Israel specifically, we felt that this was a necessary expression and need for our community to come together. I'd like to, at this point, invite the president of the JCRC, Audrey Kovner, to make some initial remarks.
Am I too tall if I stand up? I'm too short. Again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight on this solemn occasion, and it's really incredible to see such a great showing of support from everyone. I'm Audrey Kovner, chair of the Jewish Community Relations Council of the Jewish Federation of Greater Seattle, and as Rabbi Weiner said, I'd like to welcome you here, whether you're in person or watching through the live stream. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the JCRC is a partnership of nearly 60 members, representing 35 local Jewish organizations and more than 25 independent lay leaders. On behalf of the Federation and the JCRC, I want to thank Rabbi Weiner, Lisa Horowitz, and the entire staff at Temple to Hirsch Sinai for opening their doors for us tonight. Like you, I wish we were here to celebrate a simcha, a joyous event. Instead, we're gathering to share our outrage, our trauma, and our solidarity with our sisters and brothers in Israel over the horrific and unprecedented acts of terror being inflicted by Hamas. Saturday was the single deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. We stand together tonight to wrap our arms around each other and to extend those arms to our family, our friends, our sisters and brothers in Israel. And while we may be here in the United States, our response is critical. The world must condemn what is being done in Israel, and silence is not an option. Showing up speaks volumes, and we are grateful to be joined tonight by many elected civic and faith leaders. Behind me are the names, I'm just making sure they were there. Behind me are the names of the elected officials and or their teams who are in the room with us tonight. You can see all their names there. We have done outreach to many, many legislators, and everyone has been extraordinarily supportive. And on this slide, we also have the names of the civic leaders, communal leaders, and faith leaders in attendance. So if you are one of these leaders, we invite you to stand so that our audience can see all of you and know that you are here. Legislators, civic leaders, community leaders, volunteers. Our community feels your allyship, your care, and support, and we thank you very, very heartfelt. And lastly, I'd like to thank the staff and volunteer leaders at Jewish organizations across the Puget Sound region. You are the blood of our community. Without your tireless work and support, we would not be able to stand with our family in Israel or ensure Jewish continuity here at home. Lador vador, from generation to generation, you and us, we all make this possible. Thank you again for being here tonight and showing up. I will now back to Rabbi Weiner to lead us in prayer.
At this time, I'd like to ask my colleagues, rabbis, and cantors to please come to the bima so that they can lead all of us in this prayer for the nation of Israel. Please join with us. Adonai, you who are high above all nation states and peoples, Rock of Israel, the one who has saved us and preserved us in life. Bless the state of Israel, first flowering of our redemption. Be her loving shield, a shelter of lasting peace. Guide her leaders and advisors by your light of truth. Instruct them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who build and protect our holy land. Deliver them from danger. Crown their efforts with success. Grant peace to the land, lasting joy to all of her people. And together we say, Amen. We gather this evening first and foremost to extend our love, prayers, and support to our global mishpacha, our family in Israel, who grieve unimaginable loss, who reel from the shock of criminal attacks that defy the basic codes of human decency, who suffer excruciating worry for the missing and the abducted, and who now prepare to defend themselves as any nation would and must do. We share your pain. We share your anger. We share your resolve. But let us be clear and unambiguous. The atrocities committed by the malicious murderers of Hamas are an outrage and an abomination, a modern-day pogrom, an evil that has not been inflicted upon our people since the darkest days of the Shoah. There is no justification or historical context for these unspeakable acts. There are no claims for military resistance or strategic defense. It can only be seen as heinous barbarism that history will judge with contempt and disgust. And we also come together in unqualified solidarity with the nation of Israel, the realization of our people's dream of a promised return, as political differences and debates are laid aside, and we gird ourselves for the difficult days ahead, embracing Moses' counsel to Joshua of chazak ve'ematz, to be strong and resolute. Unlike most nations or peoples who endure such horrors, Israel lacks the span of time to properly mourn its dead, to deeply reflect upon the current state, and to prepare for the next stage with lengthy deliberation. The crisis is too compelling, the need too great, the threats too imminent, and the stakes too high. And we hope, we pray, that Israel's righteous and robust defense against those sworn to its destruction is powerful, purposeful, and definitive. For we are not a pacifist people. The world never allowed us the luxury of such rarefied, lofty privileges. And our tragic history is a heartless tutor, impressing upon us this cold instruction: powerlessness is the pathway to annihilation. And yet, we still believe with an emunah shlema, a complete faith, that we must still and always strive to maintain the holiness of our humanity, even in the darkness of the abyss, for it is the spark of God within us. We must always rise to the ramparts forced upon us by those who seek a world without Jews. But though our souls are seared with fury and our faith tried by uncertainty, we must be driven, not by the bloodlust of vengeance, but by the clarion call of justice. Not by a corrupting hatred, but by a defining determination. Not by a desire only to eradicate today's enemy, but a responsibility to combat the evil for which we are the world's eternal witness, with eyes ever turned toward tomorrow's path to peace. On Sunday morning, the children of our religion school gathered for Simchat Torah, less a celebration than an affirmation of Jewish continuity. It was a chance to share one of our tradition's most important insights, that we must learn to negotiate life's inevitable pairings of pain and pride, brokenness and blessing, loss and love. We spoke of our longing to stand with our family in Israel. And then we marched with the Torah, fulfilling the mitzvah of commanded joy, just as we did in the darkest days of the Shoah, just as we have through millennia of suffering and subjugation, a loving and living act of spiritual resistance, never to allow the Amalek of the moment to deny us the faith that has sustained us through the trials of time. And we sang, Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel shall live, forever rising above the vicious visions of the ages, forever holding fast to the Torah that is our light and the light we share with a weary wanting, and waiting world. Amen. It is my honor at this moment to call up Senator Maria Cantwell, an incredible friend of our community, an incredible civil servant, to offer some words of support and encouragement.
Thank you, Rabbi Weiner. It's so good to see so many young people here because we need you. We need you to join in and help us build a new world and new relationships. We come together in outrage and grief, but in determination. My condolences to anyone here who has lost a loved one, a friend, a neighbor, and to know that your grief is real and that we all should share in it. One of my privileges in the United States Senate is to meet every year with the Henry M. Jackson School of International Studies. There might be someone here tonight who's familiar with that school and that program. More than a couple of dozen students come every year to talk about their work in making a better world. Yesterday, I learned of the murder of Chaim Katzman, a graduate of the Jackson School of International Studies from the University of Washington. Chaim was studying international relations and specifically the relations between Palestinians and Israelis. He was shot to death by Hamas while trying to protect a mother and her child from harm. I share your shock over the current hostage situation that is affecting both Israeli and U.S. citizens, and I share in tonight's visual, and to say that the shock and the depravity of these acts cannot be tolerated. We must help you grieve and comfort you, but we also must take action. We must show our support for the people of Israel and our stand against terrorism. There is no justification for terrorism. The grisly execution of children, of grandmothers, of daughters should be condemned by every country, by every person, and by every religion. The United States, a democracy, must stand with the other democracy, Israel, and stand against Hamas, a terrorist organization, and condemn these brutal attacks. Anything less than pure condemnation of these attacks by Hamas is unacceptable. We must condemn the violence that reminds us of the violence we saw with ISIS, and we should say there is no place for Hamas or other terrorist groups in Israel or in Gaza or anywhere in the Middle East. There must be no place for terrorism in this world. Our president has spent the last few days calling countries to stand with us and to stand with Israel. He is literally calling on other Middle East nations and telling them to stand with Israel. I want you to know I will be returning to the U.S. Senate to make sure that our government provides all the resources it needs to defend Israel, to make sure that we have an ambassador in place, not just in Israel, but in Egypt, in Lebanon, and even our counterterrorism officials in Kuwait, and our charge that defends and helps us in Israel. We must redouble our efforts here.
to safeguard the synagogues, our communities, but most importantly, to stay vigilant against anti-Semitic activities here in our state and our nation. The vigil tonight is for us to stand together, to fight this hatred and to fight anti-Semitic behavior and to call terror by its name. I stand ready to help any of you, your families, our community, to support Israel and to make sure that all of you know we do have information I will leave with the rabbi and the Jewish organizations, contact information for our U.S. government on individual families and resources in case you need it. But the time tonight is to remember those we've lost and to recommit ourselves to action, to fight hatred, to fight terrorism, and to stand with Israel.
We are incredibly fortunate as Washingtonians to have two senators who are immensely supportive and deepest of friends to the Jewish community in the state of Israel. It is my pleasure to introduce Shana Deutsch on behalf of Senator Patty Murray.
Thank you, Rabbi. Dear friends, I am sorry I cannot be with you tonight as we mourn the horrific terrorist attacks in Israel, with more than 1,000 dead, including at least 14 Americans, one of whom was a UW grad, and we hope for the safe return of all hostages. I cannot imagine the agony their families are feeling. My heart goes out to them. The utter cruelty of Hamas, the indiscriminate killings of civilians, and the celebration of death and human suffering are indescribably chilling. We must be crystal clear. Hamas is a terrorist organization whose anti-Semitic mission is to wipe Jews off the face of the earth. Their violence has nothing to do with Palestinian liberation or the will of the Palestinian people. It is an unprovoked act of terror by a group with genocidal intentions against Jews. Full stop. Hamas places no value on human life, Israeli or Palestinian, and they carried out this brutal attack knowing it would put innocent Palestinians in harm's way. My heart aches for the innocent civilians in the middle of escalating violence that they had no part in and do not want, including Palestinians who want to live in peace and safety with dignity and justice that has too long been denied. We must all work toward a future that ensures peace and justice for Israelis and Palestinians. I know the Jewish community is small and connected. So many have family, friends, and loved ones in Israel. This attack feels intensely personal and deeply terrifying and recalls centuries of anti-Semitic abuse, trauma, and expulsion. I am thinking of my Jewish friends and neighbors and their loved ones who feel this immense pain of this moment. Words are not enough. My staff and I continue to monitor the situation, and we stand ready to assist Washingtonians in Israel, the West Bank, or Gaza. I will work with President Biden and my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to ensure Israel has what it needs to defend itself. The United States of America stands with Israel. Our commitment and alliance is unwavering. Thank you.
We're now going to show a video clip shared with us by Marco Simonetta, the Consul General for Northern California and the Pacific Northwest. And I think you will hear in his words and in his voice the straddling between wanting to be an articulate expresser of the positions of the State of Israel, but the very personal pain and rage that he is feeling as an Israeli.
My brothers and sisters, dear friends, Thank you for gathering here tonight to express your solidarity with and support to the State of Israel. It is in times like these that the unbreakable bond between Jewish communities around the world and the Jewish state shine through. What is happening in Israel is affecting Jews around the world, and here in San Francisco and back home in Israel, we feel your support as we mourn and hurt and fight and are deeply moved by it. The people of Israel are strong. We may have suffered a heavy blow and our hearts may be broken. 4 days since the beginning of this unprecedented and unprovoked attack on us. The numbers are unfathomable and still not final, and we do not even have all the names of our fallen heroes and murdered innocents. Only today in Kfar Aza, where the fighting just ended, the bodies of 40 babies were found. But our resolve is unwavering, and we shall prevail. We simply have no alternative. Over the past days, we have received an overwhelming outpour of bipartisan support from elected officials of all levels. We thank President Biden and his administration for their unwavering support as reflected in the unequivocal statement he delivered earlier today. We are grateful for the support we have received from the Jewish community and the community at large, and to all the organizations and synagogues represented here tonight. We did not want this war. It was forced upon us in the most brutal and savage way. The attacks that Hamas, the Iranian proxy that leans on anti-Semitic hatred, has perpetrated against innocent Israelis are mind-boggling. They declared an unprovoked war and waged it on the innocent, slaughtering families in their beds, massacring hundreds of young people at a music festival, kidnapping and raping scores of women, burning children and elderly, including Shoah survivors. These are not people. These are animals. Hamas is responsible for the bloodiest day for Jews anywhere in the world since the Shoah, and is also responsible for everything that will follow. They are the same as ISIS. And just as the forces of civilization united to defeat ISIS, they must support Israel to defeat Hamas. Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they have made a mistake of historic proportions. We paid a heavy price, but they will pay an unbearable one that will be remembered by all of Israel's enemies for decades. My brothers and sisters, as we fight this just battle, based on our right and obligation to defend our citizens, let it be clear. This is not time for ifs or buts. This is not a both sides situation. There were no both sides on 9/11. This is the time to stand with Israel as it faces a merciless enemy, because we are not only fighting for our own people, we are fighting for every country that stands against our. Now is also the time to push back against the violent attempts, and we've already seen them in the streets of America and around the world, to defend the savagery and evil of those who carried street to street and house to house pogroms in kibbutzim, villages, and towns, butchering indiscriminately of gender or age any Israeli that crossed their paths. Now is the time to stand united, to show steadfast support as we take all necessary means to protect our population, our freedom, and our territory. The Jewish people are no longer defenseless nor stateless. You too can help in a variety of ways. On the streets, or on social media where the battle is also raging, or by providing assistance in other forms, like you're already doing by raising funds for families of the victims, or trauma support, and for rebuilding infrastructure. You can urge children's and women's organizations to condemn the abhorrent and despicable acts of Hamas, just as they did with ISIS. You can make clear that Hamas carries full responsibility and accountability for the well-being of our hostages, and demand their immediate return home to Israel. And you can share the stories of our innocent dead, our fallen heroes, and our captives. The IDF and all other security agencies in Israel will continue to act with all their might and steadfast commitment to protect and eliminate this threat and pursue all those who perpetrate such grievous acts against us. I pray for the full recovery of the injured. I pray for the bereaved families, among them at least 14 American citizens. And I pray for the well-being of all those taken hostage, among them too, it is believed, are American citizens. My brothers and sisters, dear friends, the Israeli spirit will overcome. The battle may be long and it surely will be hard, but our people are united and committed to prevail. Together with you, in the Jewish and Israeli communities all around the world, and together with our friends and allies all around the world, we will win. And when Israel wins, the entire civilized world wins. Am Israel Chai.
It is now my honor to welcome my colleague, Rabbi Ben Hassan.
My friends, this has to stop. When will we realize that murder of Jews is never, ever okay? When will the college campuses also acknowledge that murder of Jews is never okay? We all have a job to do tonight. And that is to make sure it's not just in this room or those who are watching online, but everywhere in the entire world comes to the truth that the murder of innocents is never okay. The message I want to share with you tonight is a personal one. I want to share with you my family's story. And I'm sure it's a story that's going to resonate with you, and if not with you, then the person sitting next to you. I've been reaching out to my family and my friends in Israel. I want to share with you the messages that came from my wife's aunt yesterday. Biologically, she's my wife's aunt, but to us, she's our mother-in-law, and she's lived in Israel over these last 50 years. And she sent me the following message. Thanks for thinking of us in these really awful times. Let me tell you what's going on with our grandchildren. One of our granddaughters, Roni, is in a search and rescue unit. But I only found out today what happened to her on her base. And I keep shaking. Miraculously, she was on leave for Shabbat when the war started. Her base was invaded on Friday night, and all the soldiers were murdered. It's just too horrible to imagine that my joy in her being alive and my horror that all her friends were murdered. Shachar, another of her granddaughters, is in a base in Gush Etzion, and she's reeling from her commander's death and her friends who've been killed. Nadav, a grandson in a special forces unit, making final preparations to move to Gaza. And then it gets even more personal, as if it wasn't personal enough. These grandchildren, who I knew since they were 2 or 3 years old, she tells me about her son, Hassan, who I studied in yeshiva with when I was only 18. We're both now 41. I'm here with my 4 children, talking. And where is he? With his 6 children. He's on the way. He's been called up with his unit, and he's also on his way to the south. May this end quickly, now and forever, she writes. The death toll is horrific, and my heart is broken for so many, many families. She's terribly worried about her children and her grandchildren. We need God's mercy. We need our prayers, but we need our action. We must not think the only thing we can do is pray or hope. We must do. We must give of ourselves. We must call out the injustice, and we must give charitably, and we must do all that we can to make sure that this never happens again. My prayer that our brave soldiers, our family members who are on the eve of battle should come home safe.
Governor Inslee called me a day or so ago to express his condolences and his support, as he's always done whenever these situations have arisen. And we are so fortunate to have Lieutenant Governor Denny Heck here, representing the executive of the state of Washington. Thank you so much for being here.
I stand with Israel. I stand with the community of nations who have condemned these heinous acts of terror by Hamas. And though it's been said before, it bears repeating. And we should be very clear. Slaughtering hundreds of family members who only sitting and enjoying the music of a festival. Murdering the elderly and children, or ripping children from the clutches of their mothers and kidnapping them. These are not just acts of terror. They're barbaric. It is savagery. As a statewide official, it is literally my job description to speak on behalf of the nearly 8 million people who call Washington home. And I do so now. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel's inalienable right to defend itself against terrorism. I've had the privilege to spend some time in Israel. I've stood on the border of Lebanon. I looked out over a ravine at what appeared to be an upper middle class housing development, and instead, about half of those homes were caches of ammunition and rockets aimed at Israel. I later stood on the Israeli side of the fence border with Gaza in a small community. And there were bomb shelters everywhere on the grounds, including right next to the grade school. And they were often used. I can't imagine living with that daily. Nor can I imagine the cascade of emotions that you've been feeling since the weekend. Pain, fear, despair, soul-racking heartbreak. On the way in, I met one of the security people, Phil, several of them actually. Thank you to all of them for helping keep us safe tonight. But security for a house of worship, a most sacred of place, it shouldn't be necessary. But we know it is. You have known it since before this weekend. You knew it before the tragedy at Tree of Life 5 years ago. You have known it for a very long period of time. So now we harden our security, but not our hearts. We open our hearts, and we resolve in our hearts to support one another, to lift one another up, and do our best to keep one another safe. There is trauma. There is real trauma. But there is also community and love. And that may be the most powerful combination on the face of the planet. When Paul and I were in Jerusalem, I had the honor to visit the Western Wall. What a privilege it was to write my prayer on the little piece of paper and to carefully fold it. I leaned forward and put my head against the wall and inserted my prayer in the cracks. Were I there today, I know what my prayer would be. It would be 2 simple words: Israel forever.
I'd like to bring up my colleague, Rabbi Johanna Kinberg, to offer some words.
My little brother, now over 6 feet tall, is named Oni Yair, and he was named for a sweet, kind IDF soldier, a neighbor who was lost in the Yom Kippur War. Oni Yair, my brother, will turn 50 years old next year. My youngest son, Erez Amichai, born in Olympia, is named for the 19-year-old IDF soldier, Erez Turjaman, who was our neighbor in Jerusalem when we lived there in 2000, and he was killed in a roadside bombing. I know that future generations of our people will be named for those murdered this week, those killed for being Jews, those killed in service to the Jewish people, our Giborim. The names Oren and Shlomi and Nativ and Gil and Adi and Tal and Ruti and Nurit and Noah. Their names will be carried forward and their memories will be a blessing. They will not be forgotten. They are now our ancestors. What do we say when we experience such horror? How do we respond? When the news attacks of the terrorists first came to be Shabbat morning on the way to synagogue, my mother's voice, may her memory be a blessing, came immediately into my head, and I heard her say, Elohim Yishmor. When there are no words, she would say the shortest of prayers, Elohim Yishmor. 150 of our siblings held captive. Elohim Yishmor. Young people cut down in their prime. Elohim Yishmor. Thousands of reservists called up. Elohim Yishmor. A short prayer almost with each breath we ask for God to protect us. The voices of our ancestors have been moving through me all week. Redeem us, free our captives, protect us. And yet my parents also taught me this, in addition to naming our children for fallen soldiers. They taught me that the Jewish people, we redeem and we free and we protect each other, so that someday we will not only name for those who lived for Israel all their days, we will name only for those who've been able to live and die in peace. We'll never have to name for our fallen soldiers again. Elohim Yishmor, protect us, God.
I'd like to call forward a member of our community and one who so proudly and effectively represented us in state government, former Senator Ruan Carla.
Take your hand and gently reach out in your heart. Reach out in your heart and gently touch the face of the most important person in your life, your precious and loving partner, your daughter, your mother, your son, your father, your grandmother, your very best friend. Feel their soft skin in your hand and hear their laugh. In this dark hour, the most profound human connection of gentle touch, for kindness, for safety, for warmth, for reassurance, for tenderness, for laughter, has been violently ripped from the Jewish community worldwide. Here, in this moment, to all who weep in pain, the very soul of our community's touch gently holds you in the palm of our hand. In this dark hour, the global political narrative is changing. It is time for the global community to have the courage to acknowledge that there is no moral equivalency between the intentional and planned murder of women and children and innocents and Israel's unrelenting and ceaseless efforts to do all that is possible to avoid the pain of war. There is no moral equivalency when Hamas supporters hold signs that say, Palestine sea to sea. That is a raw political euphemism for the absolute destruction of Israel. At this moment, the world stands behind Israel. From small towns in Washington, where hardly anyone has ever met a Jew, to presidents and prime ministers and senators, we stand for the right of Israel, the right of the Israeli people, the Jewish people worldwide, to breathe free. Like so many of you, I have cousins in Israel who built that nation and who are directly impacted by the horrors. In our civic society, we have an intellectual embrace of debate, dialogue, and discussion. It is the essence of our identity. There is no debate about rationalizing the moral integrity of this moment. There is no dialogue about justifying this unprovoked war. There is no excuse in discussing moral equivalency. There is no partner for peace for those who rationalize, explain, and excuse this strategy. There is only support in the palms of our hands for those who embrace the values of peace and the right of Israel to breathe free. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai.
Our final speaker this evening is May Brown, an Israeli shlicha who comes from the south of Israel, brought to Seattle by the organization Ruan and the Jewish Agency, sponsored by the Samis Foundation. May, thank you for joining us here tonight and sharing your very personal story.
Thank you. This is not how I envisioned my first public appearance in this community. Yet here we are. My name is May Brown. I'm the new Israeli shlicha, which means emissary in the Jewish community in Seattle. I just arrived a month ago, and I'm still settling in. But I'm not here to talk about myself tonight. I'm here to share the voices of people I love, who are a part of me, to tell you what they have been going through for the past 4 days. I'm here because they can't be, and I have the privilege to speak on their behalf. I was born and raised in Tel Aviv, but for the past 5 years, my life was in the Negev. For 3 years, I studied in Sapir College in Sderot, just 20 minutes drive from the heart of Gaza. Sorry, I'm very emotional tonight. After I graduated, I came back to Sapir with a different hat on as a director in Hillel Israel. All in all, I spent 5 years living and breathing the Negev. So the people you see on the media, they are my people. They are my colleagues, my friends, my neighbors. I'm here to give them a voice tonight, to tell their story. I'm here to talk about Yuri Levin, my colleague, my friend. Yuri was held hostage in his house in Kibbutz Aza for 2 days. His home became a Hamas base packed with Hamas terrorists. The IDF rescued him a moment from death. I'm here to talk about Mai Shaiman, one of my former students. She lives with her boyfriend in Sderot. After they lived in the darkness, whispering, holding ammunition for 3 days, hearing calls for Jews to be slaughtered just outside their door, they were able to escape to their car. On the way they saw, and I quote, piles of bodies all over. They also escaped a moment from death. I'm here to talk about Tomer Segev. Tomer served with me in an artillery battalion for 2 years. He was the funniest guy, loved by all, always making us laugh. He went to the rave party in Re'im, the most innocent act. Partying, dancing, living. He was slaughtered along with 260 more young adults. It took days to find his body among all the other bodies. He didn't manage to escape death. And now the situation is so chaotic, we don't even know when they're going to bury him. These are my 3 stories. 3 out of thousands of hurt and millions of terrified Israelis. I ask more people, families, young couples, soldiers, if they can tell me their stories so I can share it with you tonight. The answer that struck me most was Noah, one of my friends from Kfar Aza. She simply said, if I tell you what we have been going through, it will make it real. So I can't. It will tear me apart. A catastrophe. This attack was not just on Israelis, it was an attack on Jews. It is unbearable for me to see, hear, and feel what my family, friends, and country is going through, and be so far away from home and secure. But the fact that you're all here tonight, listening to me, feeling what I feel, standing proudly with Israel, standing against inhumanity and hatred of innocent Jewish men, women, and children, that makes me feel like there is hope. It helps me understand that tomorrow the sun will rise again. Thank you for letting me share these stories. Thank you for standing with me. Thank you for standing with Israel.
We continue with a prayer for the captives. Please join with me. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless, preserve, and protect the captives. May God rescue them from captivity and speedily restore them in peace for the merit of our prayers. May the Holy One, blessed be God, show them mercy, increase their strength, remove their pain, and send them a recovery of body and spirit. May God return them to the heart of their families swiftly and soon. And let us say, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, matir asurim. You Adonai, who frees the captive. We continue with a prayer from our liturgy, seeking God's protection for all of us in all places in our lives.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ushmor tzeteinu, uvoeinu, lechaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim.
In a moment, we are going to sing Hatikva together. I'd like to first ask anyone who is Israeli, who has family in Israel, or who served in the IDF, or who has family serving in the IDF, please stand amongst us. And now, in strength and solidarity, if all of us can join with them, as together we reaffirm, even in the darkest moments such as this, Hatikva, our hope.
Kol od baleva benima, nefesh Yehudi homiya.
please remain standing. I'd like to invite up King County Executive Dow Constantine to light a memorial candle for us as he is making his way. As my hand goes by, if you wish to share the name, certainly of someone you've known or heard about who's perished in the last few days, or anyone whom you remember at this excruciating moment, if you wish to share those names, please do so as my hand goes by. We join together in the Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish prayer. Yitkadal v'yikadash shamei rabba, ve'alma tevrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'yizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shamei rabba mevarach be'olam olamei alamaya, Yitborach v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shamei dekudesha brihu. Leila min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran belma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom arab amin shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Oseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May the source of peace bring peace to all who mourn and bring comfort to all who are bereaved amongst us here in the land of Israel and around the world. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. The mourner's Kaddish prayer, even though it is recited at a time of loss and grief, concludes with a note of hope, asking the one who makes peace to cause peace to descend down upon us. But it is not something that we passively await. It is something that we must demonstrate a willingness and a capability to achieve. And so we end on this note of hope with Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Adonai Oz Lamo Yitain, may God grant strength to our people. Adonai Yavarech et amo v'shalom, may God bless our people and all peace-loving peoples with that wholeness of shalom. And let us say, Amen. The next slide is a way for you to help through donations, through resources, through a variety of different ways. Thank you so much for being a part of this critical moment for our community, for the people of Israel, and for the Jewish people everywhere. Please travel safely. Good night, and thank you.